Today's show brought to you in part by our friends and latest partners at Adelphi Racing Club. Adelphi is a racing club of like-minded people who enjoy horse racing and the camaraderie of being part of something bigger than themselves, a true community. And there's a lot of interaction with different members of the team and also updates and fun communications with the likes of us here at In the Money Media, who are going to be helping Adelphi throughout this season. This first offering looks really interesting. There's a runner called Salivo. You know we like that around here. A Street Sense filly who's going to be going to Ray Handel in the spring. And there's a Taprit colt. Sounds really interesting. Bred for longer distances. And this one's going to be headed to Christophe Clement. You can find out more and join the club going to adelphiracing.com. You can reach out to Matt at adelphiracing.com, or you can follow on social at Adelphi_racing on Insta, and on Twitter, it's at Adelphi Club. To learn more, go to adelphiracing.com. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for the races of Saturday, November 13th, recorded on the 12th. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatow, back with you in Brooklyn, but despite what the hat says, not the Brooklyn Bunker. I'm actually upstairs in the room we typically refer to as the Brooklyn Salon. Why? It's a long story. Maybe we'll mention it later in the show. Maybe we'll skip it entirely, but happy to be back in New York. Crazy week, getting caught up, taking care of business, but, you know, racing continues without a break. So we've got some really good stuff to talk about. This show, we're going to be covering Aqueduct. Later in the show, I'm going to mistakenly call it Belmont, but rest assured, Aqueduct on this Saturday for the Pick Six with Jill Gentili. Great to have her back on these airwaves. We've got Drew Coatney for Woodbine and Klaus Ebner to talk about not just the JRA races Saturday night, but also the amazing run of success the Japanese runners had at this year's Breeders' Cup. If you're looking for proper Breeders' Cup recap material, we've got you. 3 shows up there now. Go back in the queue. If you're on iTunes, we encourage everybody to subscribe to what we call the Black Feed on iTunes, which gets you all the In the Money Media shows. And we've got a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge recap right now with me and JK and Matt Miller. I had a cross-Atlantic Breeders' Cup recap pod with Simon Rowlands, my colleague at AtTheRaces.com, and also the great Jay Privman from the Daily Racing Forum. And then the one that everybody's talking about is the 2.5-hour marathon podcast that Nick Tamaro did with Paul Matisse, where they go over every Breeders' Cup race in granular detail. It's going to probably take you more than one sitting. You're going to probably want 1.5 speed, but this thing is well worth a listen. Great work from Nick and Paul. We encourage you to check that out, and we'll be back with our first guest right after this. Want to give another shout out to our friends at millridge.com. These are folks who really get the connection between horse players and the horse racing industry. I've had the pleasure of being friends with Price Bell at Millridge, for probably a decade now. We met randomly at the Paddock Bar and started talking racing, have been friends ever since, and they really do great work over there, raising and selling racehorses. Founded in 1962 by Alice Chandler, Millridge Farm has a rich history of raising and selling some of the best thoroughbred racehorses in the world, with 36 Grade 1 winners since 2000. It's also an amazing place to visit. The Millridge Tour is a must when you're down there in Lexington. I think you can book it up through Horse Country. You could probably also reach out directly, and they'll send you in a direction and or answer your questions about the thoroughbred racing industry. Very, very concerned and interested with, again, that cross-pollination between players and the breeding and owning side of the business, and really explaining what the thoroughbred business is all about. To learn more, go to millridge.com. First up on the show, very happy to bring back a guest who's proved very popular in her first couple of visits to the show. We've had her doing the same thing, talking about the Saturday Pick Six in New York. And we've had some success. We're going to see if we can keep that going. Coming to us from Lexington, Kentucky, she is Jill Gentili. Jill, how are things?
I'm very well. How are you, Pete? Back from California, where we got no sun at all.
And you know, as soon as we left, the weather turned beautiful, apparently.
I know. That Sunday, it was bright and sunny and beautiful. And, you know, we're heading into winter. So even though we are both Italian, we still can get very pasty, and we need that vitamin D.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mentioned that you're in Lexington. I assume you're busy working the sale. How's it been going? Been a lot of headlines coming out of there.
Very busy. Everything's been very expensive. Of course, the big mares brought over 5 million. But everything's been bringing a ton of money, and it's just every sale has been very strong. So hopefully, that continues on, and people are able to get their money back on pin hooking and things like that, and we continue this trend.
All right. How busy have you been personally?
Personally, I have been busy getting everything together for, we started a racing partnership. So it's kind of, bringing that all together now, making sure all the yearlings are in order and all the percentages are up to date and things like that. So
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, this horse business. There's no doubt about it. All right, let's dive into this Belmont Pick 6. So it's raining now in New York. There is more rain in the forecast. So we're sort of throwing up our hands and not knowing as far as what's going to happen in terms of the two turf races in the sequence. But it doesn't matter for our first race because we start off on the dirt. We've got 3 and up maiden claimers going 6.5. Jill, how are we going to light this candle?
So Pete, we're at the Big A now.
Did I say Belmont?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's amazing. We'll leave it in. Force of habit. We're at the Big A. Opening weekend at the Big A. How can I forget?
Opening weekend at the Big A. And I love this racetrack. Many people do not, but it has that sort of grit and bare bone feel, and I love it. So I'm glad we were back at the Big A. The races that I did watch yesterday, the track seemed pretty fair when it's normally a speed favoring track. So hopefully that continues, and hopefully we don't get rained out. So race 5, I am starting, trying to beat the favorite here. I am going with 3 as my top pick, Mr. JT. Second off the layoff, tried turf to get him back in shape, showed some speed, and I think he'd go with the favorite here, which will be the 7 that I will use in my pick 6. But I did not love his last race. I felt like, he showed some speed, but just really stopped badly. Ran into what I think is a nice horse there, Happy Medium, which we can talk about later in the card. But I don't love him as my top pick here. My third choice would be the 8, Will Take Control. I think he'll improve at 6.5. And I don't think there's much to beat in this race. So I would use him as my third choice in this race.
I couldn't get off Immortalization, the 7. Not that I disagree with your assessment of the last race, but I just figured dropping and first-time gelding just for form and figure and pace reasons. You make an interesting point. If Mr. JT, who I did use underneath, ends up going with, maybe it won't be as easy of a lead as I was envisioning, but I was basically going to play it with Immortalization as the A, and then the Bs, I had one of them was going to be Mr. JT. Competitive tries at the level, gets back to probably the best surface. And I had a little bit of interest in Ricky's Revenge, the 9, who I just thought ran a lot better last time, and any improvement could put him there. So I wasn't going to go entirely with Immortalization, but I think I did want to press up a little bit more than you did to get this thing started. Let's move on to race number 6. This is one of those races that is scheduled for the grass. Bunch of MTOs. We'll see how it all plays out. We've got these maiden 2-year-olds scheduled for 6 on the turf. I put an MTO on top. That's the number 2, Sky and Sand, just off showing speed against better and looking to me like the most likely winner should it get washed off. Another MTO I'll mention in that scenario is the 13, Life is Great. Just based on the nice figure last time, really nothing too creative with the 2 and the 13. And then on either surface, I'm interested in the 1, Chansu, a horse that I just thought made plenty of sense. Nothing too clever. I like the way this horse finished up. I think if they stay on, it'll be a testing surface, and the 1, Chansu, has a chance to run him down. If it's rained off, I think Chansu will probably stay in the field, and then you'll get main event, the 1A as well. And then another turf runner I wanted to mention was the 7, Empire Ridge, who flashed enough talent first time out and looked like one to keep on side if they came off the grass. Now, I think you mentioned off air, you looked at this mostly as a grass race. What numbers did you come up with?
So I definitely do agree with you on the 2 if it's rained off. I think he's the toughest horse in the field. And I mean, could possibly be a single in the pick 6 if it is rained off and it's very sloppy out there. As far as my turf picks go, I love the one Chanso. I love him because his dam, Rosalind, is a great turf horse. She was a grade 2 winner on the turf, won all close to $1 million. I think he'll be tough going back to what I think will be his best surface, the turf. As you mentioned, he also has dirt. He also has a dirt race under his belt, so he could be there at the end if it is rained off. I love the 7. I agree with you, Empire Ridge. I think it'll be tough here. Couldn't get the lead last time, but should have gained some fitness in his last and should be there in the end on Saturday. I also, my long shot play and sentimental play is Pipito. I mean, just because, I mean, we saw him last weekend. You kind of got to put that in just as a hunch play, because if he does win, you feel really stupid. And I would, and again, if that horse does win, I would love to be with Pipito during that stretch run.
Well, it's funny you mention about this, because it wasn't time to announce this yet, and all the T's are not crossed, nor the I's dotted. But it does seem very likely that the man known by many names, Chris Pipito, a.k.a. Pipes, a.k.a. the Sultan of Schenectady, may be joining the In the Money Media family to help out with some of our expanded Gulfstream Park coverage this winter. So, Jill, you make an excellent point. You can't be getting beat by Pipito around here, especially if this runner is anywhere near the 8-1 of the morning line. If nothing else, we'd never hear the end of it from him, and we hear enough from him already. Exactly.
And I, again, one more horse I want to throw in and mention is the first timer, the 9 here. I think that, I'm interested in him. I'd like to see how that horse runs first time out.
That's our shot.
Yes.
Excellent. Let's pivot to race number 7. We've got 3-up filly and mare, New York bred allowance types going 6.5 on the dirt in this spot. Looks like a favorite, according to the morning line anyway, is going to be this number 2, Breakfast at Bonnie's. Are you with her or against her?
I'm a little bit torn with Breakfast at Bonnie's. I'm actually friends with the Connections and saw them yesterday, and they didn't seem that excited about the horse. They think she has a shot, but when I don't see that, yes, definitely 100% she will win. I tend to kind of look for something else in the race. I do, if it's sloppy, I like Breakfast at Bonnie's. Her 2 wins are on sloppy tracks, so I would go with the 2 on top if we have a sloppy track on Saturday. But my top pick here is Rubies in Time, the 6 horse. Pretty much based on back class. She's raced against the likes of Bella Sophia. She's back with state breds here, and I think she could be very, very tough in this race with this field. I also like the 5 Beautiful Karen. She should go to the lead. Sometimes on that sloppy track at Aqueduct, speed holds. She'll go to the lead with Breakfast at Bonnie's, and she may be faster than Breakfast at Bonnie's here. So my top choice would be the 6 with the 2-5.
All right, 6 with 2-5 there. I was seeing it. I mean, I respect those horses all, but I was seeing it that maybe the 2 and the 5 would really hook up and set this up for off the pace types. Mm-hmm. So while I don't mind the idea at all of having those horses on the ticket, for me, they'd be more backups. And I was thinking maybe at a little bit of a price, the 7 Big Q could get the best trip, sort of a stalk and pounce or sit and pounce trip. I thought the recent work tab might signal readiness for this Tom Morley runner, barn in very good form. And again, just hoping to get a little bit of a price. Honey Money, the 1, I thought was another who could get the right type of trip if I'm right about the 2 and the 5 knocking heads. The last race disappointing. Previous runs give a big shot. And then you already made the case on Rubies in Time. Very nice figures against better in the past. So I was looking very spready in here. Maybe a 7-1-6 on the A line, and then a 2-5 on the B line. For me, really, just a leg I'm looking to attempt to get through in race number 7, which brings us to race number 8. We've got 3-up allowance types going 6 furlongs on the dirt. This is a race that already on figures, Happy Medium has just a massive advantage. And then when you look at the pace projector, I think you can crank that advantage up a little bit. I think Happy Medium looks like a free square for me. For verticals, I could tell you some stories about the 7, maybe even at a big price. If Happy Medium blows up the other speed, maybe Crea's Brooklyn Law can come in running for a second or third, and maybe Naughty Prince also looks like a strong exacta player as long as he doesn't take on Happy Medium, lets others, get tired and or blown up chasing the favorite and can come running on. So vertically, I was 5-7-1, but in my picks, I'm just all about the 5 here. Am I overrating his chances, Jill?
I don't think so. I think that he is the top choice in this race. I don't see him getting beat. I mean, I've been wrong before. Clearly, I'm not rich and living by the beach, but he looks much the best. He'll be hard to beat off his last race. And if he breaks well, I say goodbye. I'm a little bit interested in the 2 here, American Monarch, coming off that year layoff. They thought enough of this horse to run him in a grade 1. And who knows? I mean, I don't think Bill Mott would enter. I mean, maybe they're looking for a race with this horse, but I don't think he'd enter him here if he didn't think he had a shot. We'll see. It's a wait and see, but I would use that horse on my ticket for a long shot play.
So even in the picks, you would not be 100% of your money through Happy Medium. You'd try to get alive for a penny to the 2 American Monarch.
Exactly.
So certainly, certainly unexposed. We can say that much. Unexposed and in the right hands.
Right.
Just a total mystery and a horse that for me would be a little interesting if the price were to go, 20-1 or something. I just don't know. I feel like there's enough form and name recognition there that the 8-1 of the morning line, is probably a good guess. At 12-1 or whatever, I wouldn't. I'd probably just say, you know what, I don't want to lose any equity on the big one, but it's certainly a clever idea and certainly a horse that also makes sense to use underneath. Let's move on to our featured race. Oh, you have another point on that, Jill?
Yeah, I mean, we know if the odds are 4-1 or less, that people know something and absolutely use that horse on your ticket. Although it'll be too late by then. Use them in exactas.
Yeah, it'll be shocking to see to me. I mean, doesn't Happy Medium have the look of a horse that's going to be like 1-9 on the tote? I feel like the pick 5, pick 6, that's the only way to even try. I think sometimes you'll see a little bit typically you'll see a little bit of juice in the odds in those longer pick end bets. I think, the win pool, you got to figure it's going to be full on tilt, don't you?
Absolutely. No.
Let's talk about this featured race here. We've got 150 in the pot for the Artie Schiller Stakes, going 1 mile on the turf for these 3-year-olds and up. I'm thinking this race is going to stay on. But I did look at it for off as well. We'll let you kick this one off, though, Jill. What'd you come up with?
This is a really, really tough race. As you mentioned earlier, I did handicap for the turf, and I sat here looking at these PPs for a very long time, trying to figure out who would actually win this race. I landed on Morley in the 6, Tell Your Daddy. I think that last race at Keeneland was a very, very nice race. The horses coming out of Keeneland too, they're not getting much respect, but the turf was weird there. You were there. It was almost like boggy and soft every day, even when the sun was shining. So I really think this horse has a good chance. He needs to be close enough to run down who I think will be the leader in Rinaldi. But I think he'll be right there, and I really believe he'll win this race. The 11 Field Pass is my second choice. Outside Post is not great, especially at Aqueduct, but he should be there at the end. I don't like the cutback in distance, but I don't think it would really be an issue here. He can get them. He can win at a mile, so I'm not that concerned. So he's my second choice. And then, I need a price. I'm looking at Shug, 8, Breaking the Rules. He's the closer I'm looking for here. I think there'll be a lot of speed with Rinaldi and Flavius going. Hopefully nobody goes like what usually happens when I think there's a lot of speed. Yeah. But I think if he gets that pace, he will be closing at the end. So I am looking at 6, 11, 8, and I will use the 1 here, Flavius, Chad, as a backup.
This race is another on turf. I'm going to try to play for a meltdown. I think with Flavius inside, Field Pass outside. I mean, these are nice horses, as you point out, but I'm wondering if they don't both have to really try to press and go. Rinaldi, honest enough. Tell Your Daddy, more speed. What about March to the Arch to come flying late? This horse has some really strong form, and I just think there's plenty of pace to set up a late run. I'm hoping 6 or 8 to 1 could be on offer. I'll probably use the other Cassie runner as well, the 2 Olympic runner, another one who does the best work late. If I can get alive to those 2 in some combinations as my A's, I'll be very, very happy with that. As far as a beeline goes on the turf, Tell Your Daddy's the one I want. This is a horse they wanted to run in the Breeders' Cup. Johnny V, so good with these speed horses at getting them to sit. And if he can get sort of a stalk and pounce trip, he's probably your most likely winner. Based on all the reasons you said, I should probably even make him a third A, honestly. He's likely enough to do that. I think I'm going to make that change as we're talking it through here. And then off of the turf, I thought the 9 Bal Harbor looked like the right one. Just excellent tactical speed and very strong figures. But hopefully we're going to stay on the turf and I can get Tell Your Daddy mixed up in some exactas with the 4 and the 2 and have those 3 as A's. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't mind the idea of having, or if I can afford it, to get a runner like Field Pass on the B line as well as we head to our nightcap race number 10 here at Aqueduct. I'm remembering the track now. We've got these 2-year-old New York bred maiden claimers going 6.5 on the dirt. And Jill, how are we going to get paid?
Well, where do we start with this one? You could make a case for any of these horses. I mean, you could do an all button here and be completely fine. If I had to narrow it down, I mean, I don't love who I think will be the favorite, the 7.5 birthday. I'm going to put him on my ticket, but I don't love Freud's on the dirt. His first race was okay, but again, I don't know where he's going from there. He hasn't raced against anything. But my top choice will be the Finger Lake Shipper, the Rudy Rodriguez horse, the 10 Classic Myths. That is my top pick. Soundly beaten at Saratoga twice, bad races. Came back last time at Finger Lakes in an open, and I'll put open in quotes, and ran pretty well. So I'm taking a flyer with the 10 here. That's my top pick. 7.5 birthday being my second choice. And then I do like the 5 Lost Anchor, just because of the addition of blinkers. Like I said, this race for me is a crapshoot. I didn't see anyone here on paper that really stuck out as somebody who would come along and move forward and be a monster and beat these horses soundly. So it would be a 10-7-5 with me.
That's interesting. You're definitely leaning towards the ones that had run. I was unimpressed enough with them that I was leaning toward the ones who hadn't. And there were just a couple of little pedigree angles, and given your expertise, you can tell me if I'm crazy on this, but that's how I filled out my top 3. Actually, with firsters, I felt like I could pull some sort of angle on, starting with the 3 Bistrita. I've been impressed with Gormley. He's had a very nice run as a first-time sire this year. And then Jeremiah Engelhardt, also known for success in the category, and he does even better if you filter for dirt sprints. So Bistrita, I thought, looked interesting. Unbridled's Reign, I thought, had a chance. Mohayman has been above average with his debut types so far. And then there's a nice Dam pedigree angle here too, with the Dam having dropped 5 winners from 8 starters. I always look at that. And then Tap the Heart, unexciting, but just looked too obvious. Enough pedigree and, powerhouse Pletcher Barn. Yeah. So I was thinking 3, 1, and 4 to get out. As I make the case for any of those, are you still as anti them? I mean, you really think this will go to one that's run?
Like I said, I do, but I did use I have the 5 written down with a question mark on my notes. Bistrita. I do, from all the things you said about her. I don't think you have to be a superstar to beat this field. So a first timer could definitely come out and win. And the 5 would be my top choice of the first time starters. The Pletcher horse is worrisome to me because he doesn't normally enter horses first time out and maiden claimers, and his stats are not that great. So I looked at that and said, he really doesn't like this horse. And I mean, maybe they're looking to get rid of him, get rid of her, get her claimed. But I'm kind of iffy about that. So I would stick with the 5 here for the first time starters.
I have Bistrita as the 3, actually. The 5.
I'm sorry, the 3 horse. Sorry about that.
Oh, just sorry. In case people are taking their own notes. Of course, you don't have to worry. I'll take the notes for you. If you're an In the Money Plus subscriber, we'll send out our A's and B's after the race. We had a nice boost of In the Money Plus subscriptions around Breeders' Cup, but obviously we continue that all year long with extra shows, etc. If folks want to see about that, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. And one of the low-key benefits is not having to write down numbers, especially if you're like driving or something. I hate to think of that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like half my podcast, it's either driving or out walking around. So I figure it's much easier to just sign up and get the notes. Well, that's good stuff. What else are you looking forward to this weekend? What else you have going on?
So we have a runner on Sunday. Shady McGee will be running at Aqueduct on the turf.
Nice.
So hopefully it's a little firmer than it will be on Saturday. So looking forward to that race. He's been a hard knocker, 3-year-old. He's always right there. He just, we need him to get there. So looking forward to that. A lot of sales going on, and hopefully some nice weather and walking the dogs and enjoying the fall. So
sounds pretty nice. Any chance? I assume work too much in Lexington for you to get to Aqueduct for that race?
Yeah, no, I won't be at Aqueduct, but I will be back in New York a couple of weeks. So
excellent.
Looking forward to that.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to raise a glass. That'll be fun. Are you going to get to go to any of the international sales coming up?
Yes. Actually, in December, I will be over at Newmarket for that sale, and then in Arcana in France, in Deauville as well. So that will be a lot of fun.
I'm feeling some serious envy right now. So I got to tell you. Well, great job. You've been fantastic every time on the show, and I think you're just getting better and better, and look forward to working with you again soon. Much appreciated.
Let's make some money, Pete.
Today's show also brought to you by our friends at oldsmokeclothing.com. You've seen me during the show wearing our I'm Alive in the Pick 5 t-shirt, which I was until Dunbar Road lost by a nose the other day. But that's another story. We've got an array of t-shirts. You can find them at inthemoneypodcast.com/oldsmoke. The one time, the badge of honor, which comes with a baked in donation to the TRF, the chalk eating weasel, the degenerate horse player. There's a lot of cool stuff. And if you want to check out the latest JK shirts, you can go to oldsmokeclothing.com/JK. That's oldsmokeclothing.com/JK to check those out. And when you're on the Old Smoke site, no matter what shirt you're buying, and there's a lot of good ones, you can get free shipping with the promo code MONEY. Check it out today at oldsmokeclothing.com. On the show, very happy to bring in a man who, for at least some of the money that I on Breeders' Cup Saturday, that's because we've the JRA and Japan racing all year, much more ready to take Love's Only You. Was I smart enough to also use Marsh Lorraine? Of course not. But we're now bringing in from Woodbine to represent Klaus Ebner. Klaus, how are things?
Good, Pete. How you doing?
Great, man. Recovering, really in recovery mode. Dressed down. I'm upstairs in the house, a little bit more informal setting than what we're used to here, without the records and whatnot behind me. But very happy to be chatting to you. I know you spoke about this before the Breeders' Cup, but in retrospect, how surprised are you? What does this huge result for Japan at the Breeders' Cup mean for them?
I think the biggest thing is really just, the accomplishment of winning 2 races on the world scene yet again just continues to show the strength of Japanese breeding, what they've done. And then on top of that too, Pete, I'm sure you're aware, but then, on the tail end of the Japanese horses winning those 2 races at the Breeders' Cup, we also had, Mr. Yoshida and some of the owners and breeders in Japan go ahead and buy, I think it was 7 of the top mares, fillies and mares out of the sale just a few days later. So it's just like, the Japanese dominance continues, and they just continue to buy up our top bloodlines here in North America as well.
At what point does it become a little bit worrisome? I mean, we have two wins at the Breeders' Cup this year. This is clearly a trend that's going to continue. I wonder if any of the we've seen this before, migrating bloodstock around the world. I just wonder if there's any concern amongst top breeders in the States about some of these top level broodmares heading overseas. Have you heard any scuttlebutt along those lines?
No, I haven't, but you're right. It is a bit of a bloodstock drain if you look at it in the kind of the grand scheme of things. But it just also shows you the passion and determination that the Japanese do have in terms of being one of the, if not, leading breeding operations in all the world. The purse money there obviously leads to things in terms of, making it worthwhile to purchase these mares, having, the next studs. Japan had a huge loss in with the likes of Deep Impact and Heart's Cry, both the two of their perennial leading sires in Japan, both retiring and or passing away. So, you can see that in terms of them looking for that sort of next big sire as well to sort of replace Deep Impact. And on the breeding side, they're looking for, those crosses or those mares that sort of may breed well with Sunday Silence blood, being the halo blood, if you will. So,
yep.
Again, all this kind of leads to, like I said, just really them trying to take that next step and continue to be at the upper echelon of breeding and racing in the world.
Loves Only You, very impressive. That was one I was on board with, based on your say-so and that of many others, and just a reading of the form book. It made all the sense in the world. Had a few questions about the betting on the race, had a few questions about her. Do you have any idea what's happening with her next? What are the plans for Loves Only You?
Yeah, so she's still in Del Mar right now. So she's still actually training in Del Mar. They're keeping her there and then shipping her direct to Shatin to run in the Hong Kong Cup.
Right, that's HKIR night. Yep.
Yes,
just in a couple weeks time. Well, that'll be exciting to see how she gets on there if her world travels can continue. The kind of season she's had, it makes every sense she might have another big race and or even forward move. Of course, the waters get pretty deep over there, but that's fascinating. It would be interesting to see how that goes for her. I wanted to ask specifically about the betting. A lot of people were curious how the Japanese bettors' money affected or didn't affect the price on Loves Only You. How did the betting work? And if you happen to know, what price was she if it was a different pool?
So the JRA is not allowed to commingle into any pools around the world. So that's kind of how it works. They're on their own little island. And I think, speaking of us betting on Japan and offering Japan, I would love to have all of us to be able to wager into those pools. So just in case anyone isn't aware, Japan has the largest pools in the world, more than Hong Kong, more than anyone else. So, they're doing roughly $250 billion a year in wagering in their pools. When they wager on things, it's not taken lightly. So they only offered 3 races from the Breeders' Cup. And ironically, the Distaff wasn't one of them. So even though they had a horse in the Distaff, they actually weren't offered wager on that race. Which is really strange, but they can only offer so many races in terms of their agriculture and legislation that they have in Japan to offer racing. So I believe they did the Breeders' Cup Turf, the Turf, the Classic, and the Affiliate Mare Turf were the 3 races they offered, and I think they did around $11 million on those three races alone in Japan. Again, understanding that time of day wasn't the greatest for them. So, but still, it's just speaking of how much they bet, Pete, if you look back at the ARC, this year for the ARC, Japan alone on that one card of racing bet $45 million on that card alone. So it's just, they're passionate. They love racing. They love showing their passion through the wickets as well. So yeah.
That's crazy and interesting stuff. Do you have any info on how they bet the races that they had access to? Is that available anywhere? I'd just be very curious.
I was trying to find it before our meeting here, and I still haven't located it. But I'll certainly tweet it out once I can find that. I'll send it all over to you, and we can retweet it through Twitter or whatever.
That'd be great. Be a nice thing. Now, Marsh Lorraine, I was not smart enough to have. I went down with the Dunbar Road ship, which was very painful, especially with that super slow-mo angle that apparently wasn't in the right spot. I mean, how do they do this to us sometimes in this game? But sounds like you did get alive through the Marsh Lorraine race. Was there a form angle there, or was that just a loyalty and due to what a fan you are of these Japanese horses in general?
Like you, Pete, I was pretty heavily on the Dunbar Road train as well. It was only because I heard you kept talking about her in all of your previews. So I said, I'm not going to ignore her. So I think Matt Bernier liked Carrier. So I had Carrier, Dunbar Road, and Marsh Lorraine. Those are my 3 horses in the race. And did I do any sort of boxing or exactors or anything else? No, I just kind of played them all straight up, and I did have all of them in my horizontals, which was good. But then I was totally opposed to Nick's go, so he kind of destroyed my pick 5. So yeah.
The old kick sand in your face, stuffed you in a locker, choose your expression. Well, it was an amazing showing, and it'll certainly help the industry in terms of like the horse racing industry, breeding and bloodstock. You have to think some of that fervor at the sales came from having that success at the highest level. It doesn't sound like there's a ton of opportunities for cross promotion, doing more, getting us betting there, them betting here, that I would like to think this could have maybe been a sea change for. It just comes down to the culture. Is that safe to say?
I don't think it's a culture. I think it's more just the regulations in Japan are very rigid and restrictive, right? So for us to wager into their pools, it has to be approved by the government as well as the Department of Agriculture, who sort of regulates and monitors and controls racing in Japan. So I really think, Pete, that we will get there eventually, but it's really one of those long game things where we're already now wagering in Hong Kong. That wasn't the case 10, 15 years ago, but we are now. So I think we're getting there. And speaking to the people at JRA, I think the sort of shackles are being loosened a little bit, and I certainly hope that in the next possibly 5 to 10 years we can be wagering into those giant pools in Japan, along with the players in Japan. And that would be amazing if we can do that, and having access to those pools. That's we really get good payouts, as opposed to again, nothing against our B pools we offer here in North America, but you can see sometimes where you hit a pick 5 sequence and you're just like, well, that should have paid 5,000, but because the pool's only at 5,000, you're getting $800-900. Again, it's tough, but that's what we have to do, and it's a gradual process.
And there is a small upside to it as well. Sometimes that outlier will fall on your side, and we have the opportunity for carryovers that maybe aren't available domestically. Obviously, it'd be better to commingle, but I'm just saying it's not like we should ignore the opportunities that we have. Speaking of which, give us a little preview of what we're going to be looking at for the rest of the JRA season, and then let's bring it in to talk specifically about what's cooking on Saturday night.
Sure. So we have the Queen Elizabeth II Cup, which is the sort of the key race for the fillies and mares. This is a race that Loves Lovely You. She wasn't racing in the U.S. Last week. She would have been in this race this weekend. This is sort of the top fillies and mares running, mile and 3/8 of the distance. And we'll get into the contenders a little bit, but sort of this is the kind of key race for the fillies and mares that are kind of that aren't targeting the Japan Cup. So Japan Cup will be really the key race that we're going to have at the end of November. And then we'll also have the Rima Keenan, which is sort of the end of the year championship that we will actually run on Christmas Day this year. So if you aren't comatose from the turkey and the beverages, you can stay up late with us on the Christmas Day and wager on a little Japan. So there you go. We've
definitely got some viewers and listeners who are sick enough to do just that. Just set the alarm. You have the nap, and then you get up and you bet, and then of course it'll segue beautifully right into everything good. Great jump racing on Boxing Day in England, and then right on into New York, and then of course Santa Anita opening day. So it's gonna be great stuff.
There you go. Right. So yeah. So that's sort of the key races as we go along. We do have some of the 2-year-olds racing in December as well. We also have the one thing of note, I guess, which is kind of interesting, is in December, early December, we'll have the Champions Cup. That's the mile and 1/8 dirt race in Japan. And guess who we're going to see there? Sodashi. So
nice.
she's actually bred to run on the dirt in terms of her pedigree. So they're going to take a shot. Like, her mother was really good on the dirt. Her dad was really good on the dirt. He won the Champions Cup. So they're going to go that route. And you know what? We may actually see, and again, this is kind of crazy when you think about the grand scheme of things, but if she does well in the Champions Cup, we could see her in possibly Pegasus. We could see her in Saudi, and we could even see her on Dubai World Cup night. So the unicorn may be traveling around the world. So we'll see.
Oh, that would be a great story. My daughter will be very excited to hear that. So we've still failed to get the Sodashi plushie. This is rarer than hen's teeth, I'm afraid. Around these parts.
So I do have the word out, Pete, with all of my people at the JRA. So I'm trying to have them hook us up with some in the money Sodashis. So maybe we can score some score some rare, unique ones, maybe 2 or 3 to give out, and if not, we'll just throw them on eBay and make tons of cash.
There you go. Donate it to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Though I will tell you, dinner and drinks are on me for the rest of your life. Should you pull that one off, you'll make an 8-year-old girl very happy.
Yeah. But again, for this weekend, we really it's the Queen Elizabeth II Cup. For me, really, it's just if we're looking at the race itself, we're looking at there's probably around 3 or 4 horses I think are deserving favorites. Le Papel is primarily the main contender in here. She was the sort of darling of the spring meet so far this year. She came back with a 4th place effort, which was kind of shocking. I thought she would win that last race against the boys in the all-comers, which is again same distance, mile and 3/8. But she is in here again. Christophe Lemaire rides. But I do think there's a few long shots in here that's like the likes of Win Marilyn, who beat her last time out against the boys, who kind of a developing 4-year-old. And a horse called Clavel, who is a late closer and will be a long price. So those are kind of my thoughts quickly on the race, if you will.
An early thought on wagering: is this a mess around in vertical exotics type of a race? Are those horses to use on top? Is there one that you fancy more than the other, or projects to be the best value? How would you divide it up further, with of course the knowledge that you'll have a lot more on the JRA races Saturday night coming on inthemoneypodcast.com, but just to give us a little bit more from this far out?
Sure. So I think it's for me it's those 3, and then strangely enough, it's not that strange when I say strangely enough, but you usually don't see it. But the filly that won the last jewel of the Philly Triple Crown, the Shuka Show, Ekaterino Musume, she's actually back in this race. So it's a short wheel back of about less than probably about 3 weeks now that she's returning back. So she's in here as well. She ran really well in that race. In the last jewel of the Philly Triple Crown. Again, I've never been a huge fan of her, but I still think she's obviously a good contender here and deserves a look. But again, so my 4 would probably be those 4. So Win Marilyn, Le Papel, Clavel, and then Ekaterino Musume.
All right. Well, you'll give more on specific thoughts of how to wager as we go forward. Folks should be following you on Twitter at @ZEbner. That's ZEEBNER, and you will be blogging and getting some stuff up on the site as well. What time does that usually post, and when can folks look for past performances?
Yeah, so we usually get the past performances really early, so usually 3 in the morning, the morning of now. And that's due to our friends at Sky Racing who are helping us out with the JRA English PPs. We'll load it onto the site as well as our selections roughly, 4 to 5 hours before the race. We try to get it up there so at least everyone can handicap and have a chance to look at some of our selections. And then I usually do the stakes analysis roughly 2 hours or 3 hours out before the race. So that way it's kind
Terrific.
of fresh in mind. So
plenty of great stuff to check out over at inthemoneypodcast.com. And hey, you saw Japan have this success at the Breeders' Cup. Why don't you see what all the fuss is about? Stay up late Saturday night or handicap and put in some picks and go to bed and go back and watch the replay in the morning. Whatever's your pleasure. But Klaus, it's been so great having you on here all year long, and we've got several more weeks to do it. Obviously, we'll have you in heavy rotation. Godspeed with your selections on Saturday night, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Pete. Have a good day.
Next up on the show, very happy to be joined by In the Money's own business manager. The cat has been put away and he's ready to rock and roll. Somehow I want to put that phrase on a t-shirt already, words that actually just came out of this man's mouth. He is from In the Money Media, Drew Coatney. How are things?
I'm doing good. It's nice to be back in the guest chair. Made my debut with Stu from the Stewcast. So happy to be back in this side of the equation. And
it's easier, isn't it? Don't lie. It's a lot easier when you just have to answer. Keeping the ball in the air can get a little tricky.
It is. And yes, the cat, June, actually was put away. She happens to have a tendency to make interruptions. And we need to make some money here on this weekend at Woodbine. So got to get to business.
We'll stay focused. I think that's fair. I have already claimed that we've done the last Breeders' Cup recapping that we're going to do on this network. And while that's largely true, you and I haven't even had an off-air conversation yet about how things went. You mentioned your hosting debut. Hopefully that was fun. But how'd you do with the windows last week?
I did good, actually. I was live to Essential Quality in the 2-day double, and then saw the price on Knicks Go. Saw the track was playing a little speed favoring, a little bit. I'm not a professional bias player, and so just went that route with Knicks Go. I wouldn't call it a hedge. It was almost a great example of when hedging becomes an actual opinion, and you're getting the value at 3-1. It was just too good to pass up.
Good for you.
No.
Good for you.
And I was calling all of our friends with Matt Miller getting that prize money there. So what a win by him. But it sounds like you had a good one. I've heard many of your recaps, and it was a heck of a weekend.
For me, it'll be a story mostly of what might have been. There were a couple of noses, a couple of seconds, and then a couple of poor betting decisions. I say poor betting decisions, getting caught up socializing and not bothering to bet the smooth like straight in second behind Space Blues Exacta. I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you what I was thinking there. In the sprint, having a massive anti-post Jackie's Warrior position, thinking one horse could beat him, watching that horse win and not cashing. A couple little things like that kept it from being a 5-figure day. But, it was a 4-figure day. We won't be complaining. And, even though we could if we wanted to. But we've done that on other shows. So we'll leave that alone. But
well, I do have my quick story. I walk out Aloha West. I walk out my in-laws. That's where I was all weekend. They live on a farm. I walk out there to go help the father-in-law doing the good thing and miss putting the bet in on Aloha West, who I had on top. And then, as if my cool hadn't been shaken yet, big on Dunbar Road, and am full on freak out mode on the couch with the in-law sitting across from me saying, "Who is this degenerate?" The only thing missing was the degenerate T-shirt. So there you go. And my in-laws are the best. They know me, they love me, and no better place to be on a big day like that.
Oh, that's too funny. Well, good stuff. Let's dive in to these races on Saturday. Now, we have a stake race earlier in the card. Full disclosure, I didn't get a chance to look at it. And I know you were scrambling too, but did you have a chance to look at this Grade 3 Maple Leaf? If not, you're going to be covering it, I'm sure, in your written content. So no worries if the answer is no.
I did. And this is a tough race with a lot of question marks that I think we're going to, if you get stuck into a horse, you're going to see at least 5-2. I don't know of any horse who's going to be heavily favored. And there seems to be a lot of, I'm going to call them dawdlers, kind of plotters that I can't really make heads or tails of who's going to go to the lead in this type of event. And I like the number 5, La Lune, at 8-1. He's going for the third start in North America. That proves to be a bit useful. Last out was 10 and a half pace, and that pace collapsed around the horse. And then 2 back will aim as that being that foundation, good figure earned. And this grinder style will hopefully be fending them off late. And I just like the inside draw. If the number 10 Lake Lucerne was drawn a little bit inside, maybe I'd give that one a better edge and advantage, but I will want this one on side because this long run up across the wire the first time, this horse will have plenty of time to figure things out in terms of track position, and I think the tactical speed should sit this one up near the lead as well. I don't want any of these deep closers in here, and I'm going to stick with these two horses. Again, the number 5 La Lune at 8-1 and number 10 Lake Lucerne at 6-1. We're getting good prices here. I'm really curious to see how the tote responds to these two runners that appear to me on paper as the most logical.
I will put a quick vote just looking at the pace in this race for Broadway Lady with the right kind of ride on or near the lead. Looking at Timeform US, it just projects an honest pace. It does have La Lune pretty far back, and it interestingly has Lake Lucerne in kind of a nice stalking position, but I like where Broadway Lady's likely to be positioned. Timeform, for the record, has the 3 Sky Gaze and Broadway Lady sharing the duties up there up front. We'll see also, very much of an open question if Broadway Lady wants to go as far as the 1.25 miles, but I'll put a little tepid, quick capping vote for that one for her, despite, again, full disclosure, didn't dive into that race the way that I did the rest of these, starting with race number 8, where we've got Grade 2 action in the Bessarabian Stakes. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Anybody out there that this has the potential to be Alcibiades Part 2, but hopefully not, which is weird given that I've been playing and covering Woodbine for years. I should know this one called. But anyway, we'll just call it race number 8. We're going 7 furlongs on the synthetic. Drew, how are we going to get this late pick 4 kicked off?
Yeah, I'm going with the bomb in here, the number 8, Emmeline. And I've had this one as a fan favorite for a while, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think it's been forced to run in a configuration this horse doesn't want to, in the 2 turns that is. The maiden breaker, which feels like this horse has been winning multiple times, but that was the last race. Actually got the job done here on this horse. So I'm big on this huge, massive price of a runner that I think we can find the foundation and be able to stalk and make a move. Does need to advance in figures, but I think we're going to see all of the 20-1. I will put this caveat here: if we don't see the number 8 Emmeline run very well, it might be time to be put on the shelf for a little bit, get a nice rest and recovery, and come back for a strong 2022 campaign, because this 3-year-old has a lot of upside. Other ones I will be using the number 5 Auglutz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that one right either, but 8-1. Returns back from the quick stint to Naira and really did. I mean, what a race! I don't know if you've watched that replay, Pete, but what a race this one was. Got smashed out of the gate, made 2 moves. The subtle first one was midway through the turn, needed to get re-engaged with those leaders, and then quicken to fend off late the closing kicks of the runners behind. So I think this runner has a lot of upside here. And then Gallardo gets back aboard, familiar with this one. So all good, positive signs. And then I am fading the number 7, Our Secret Agent, because I think everyone's just going to gravitate towards the class level, and there's just going to be no meat left on that bone. Figures don't really tower over this field either, and I think it's going to be bet down even farther than 2-1. So I'm big on the 8-5 as A's on my line, and I will be fading the 7.
All right. I get the case on the 2 that you mentioned for sure, and I did have Auglutz, who I think that is how you pronounce it, as a backup based on the trips. I didn't pick Our Secret Agent on top. I have as my second choice, but I did have as an A. I just thought the synth form was too good to ignore, including the grade 3 win last time. And then also the confidence connections show in running her here when she's going to be sold in a few days at Keeneland. I don't think they're putting her forward here unless she is ready to run a very big race. But I did put the 4 Lady Spite Spear on top. This is a pet horse of mine, one that I really liked in the grade 1 QB2 at Keeneland, where she flipped in the gate. She's one to include for me despite the question marks. Just a progressive type, I think, is sitting on a good race. Obviously this wasn't the plan. I don't know about 7 on the synth for this runner who's done all the work on turf, but I like her too much. I had it 4, 7 as A's and the 5 as a B. Anything else in the stakes race before we move it on to race number 9, Drew?
Yeah, you're going to get, if you're going to get 4-1 on Lady Spite Spear, I don't like Lady Spite Spear because I don't think the Natalma came back that strong. But if you do like Lady Spite Spear, watch how Broadway Lady runs in the race prior to give clues as to how this one is going to proceed. So again, just trying to use some perspective here as we're trying to handicap these races on these unexposed type of form runners like this one.
And when you're talking about the Natalma not coming back strong, you're clearly referring to 2020, not 2021, when it produced the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf winner in Pizza Bianca. Good story there for our friends up at Woodbine. Let's move on. Let's move on to race number 9. Starter allowance type filly and mares 3 and up, going 1 1/8 on the synthetic with lots of speed signed on here, Drew. I was going to play this for a meltdown, and the late runners I like best are the number 1 Epilogue, flying late, I thought, against the flow last time. And this runner, you can make a case, has been a flow move up in the last 3 runs. Not exactly a winning kind when you look at that lifetime mark, but I expect the price is going to be higher than the 5-1 of the morning line. Equine Edge has Epilogue at 10-1 on the morning line in this spot, and I think this horse has a good chance to get the job done in the spot. And did I skip ahead of race? Is that what I just did here?
You sure did, sir.
I caught myself anyway. Those are my thoughts on race number 10. We might as well. We're just going to do them out of order. We're not going to make Craig miserable. He's back from the marathon. We're not going to make him edit. Number 10, Seau, is the other closer I want in here. Surely named for the ill-fated Chargers, Dolphins great, of whom I was a big fan. This runner might be better on dirt, but has some old synthetic form to put him right in the hunt. This is a cool old horse and is a winning kind. Cool career lifetime mark there with the 10 wins, 10 seconds, and 10 thirds. I was going to see if we could get the 1 and the 10 involved in race number 10. If you don't mind jumping ahead, do race number 10 with me, and then we'll go back to race number 9. Apologies.
No, I see this race the same way you do, and I'm going to be heavily leaned on the number 10 Seau as the inside speed horses are drawn. I think this one will have the perfect run of it, especially at 6.5 furlongs. Again, these long run-ups into the turn where ground loss happens when you're running wide, this horse is going to have plenty of time to figure things out and get track position, stay in touch with the field. Value line sits at 2-1. I think will be a sizable win bet if we can get any price of that sort. I also want the number 2 Blockbuster. I think of the speeds, this one should be able to get away and does need to run a little bit faster and have a little bit more finish. But again, I think the pace makes this race. And if they let this one go, the number 2 only has one way to go, and that's forward. So number 2 Blockbuster at 8-1 is one I want on my side. And then defensively, I will be using the number 8 Crafty Conquest. I hate that price at 5-2, but I could easily see this one running them off their feet. But I could also easily see this one getting a speed duel with, say, the number 2 Blockbuster going wide into that turn and then getting past late and stretch by the number 10. So I'm going to use the 10 and the 2, and with a unusual backup of the favorite as a B, the 8.
You make an interesting point on the 8, and I agree that I don't like the price, but sometimes it's interesting when you look at Timeform US and you see a fast pace and you see 3 numbers out there, but then you look a little closer and you see that of the 3 speeds, Crafty Conquest, the only one whose price is short. It's two long shots out there, and you'd like to think we live in a world where those long shots think, hey, maybe our only chance is to go forward. But very often that shorter of those 3 can prove best speed and go on with it. Now, I'm still playing it for a meltdown, hoping that Emma on the 6 and Husbands on the 9 go forward, and that you might have some other pace involved in this spot as well from a runner like Bay of Rum. That's why I'm going to play it for the meltdown. But I do think you can make a pretty good case that Crafty Conquest will be the best speed. And I wouldn't hate on anybody for suggesting that horse should be at least a backup in this spot. Now we're going to back up to race number 9, the one I was supposed to kick off just a minute ago. This is a starter allowance race with 3 and up filly and mares going 1 mile and an 1/8 on the synthetic surface. And we'll go out of order here. I'll let you kick this one off.
Oh, I'm so thankful because I have had this race earmarked to redeem myself.
Let's see if you can do it.
As a notorious bad pronunciator, you missed Drydell. Do you know what Drydell was meant to be? Ellen J. Foxwood, Great Horse 1.
I assume Dreidel. I mean, come on.
All right.
Drydell. You did that with Stu? Did he give you a hard time?
No, he right over both of our heads.
So you said it on the show, and somebody commented to you, "Hey, idiot, Hanukkah's in a few weeks. You should probably know this is Dreidel."
No, but I could tell in Robert Geller's tone that he was saying that to me.
He had listened and was surely disappointed.
So I'm going with Antigone. I think.
Boom! Out of the park.
I even wrote it phonetically so I can make sure we knock this out of the park. I think too short last out and couldn't keep up with that early pace that's required in those 7 furlong events. And 2-back chased a loose leader today. The pace projects much more neutral, much more calm, and should help the chances of the stalking runner. Kimura gets back aboard. Give this runner all the chances. Drexler's 23%, first time in the barn, helping our confidence in this 9 furlong event. So the number 5 Antigone at 2-1. Value feels like 2-1 is about it. I don't think I'll be doing anything other than the horizontals because I'm going to guess this runner gets bet down. Cold single, number 5, Antigone.
I could see it. I mean, I've picked her the last 2, right? And I thought the trouble was real last time. And you're getting the switch to the Drexler barn. Very, very dangerous. Should get the clean run through this time. I'm with you. I was only going to mention one runner, and it was Antigone. So, yes, and I deliberately, at the last moment there when I realized we were talking about the correct race, was very glad that I didn't do that one first. In fact, I'm going to pretend that it's intentional that I did race 10 before race 9 just because I wanted you to say Antigone first. Let's move on back to where we are meant to be, which is going all the way to our nightcap, race number 11, with these nickel claimer fillies and mares going 6 furlongs on the synthetic surface. Bit of a head scratcher here. I've got an idea that I'm excited about, but let's start with you. How are we going to get paid?
I think we're going in a lot of directions here, but I'm going to try and get stuck in to make sure that I get paid. And I'm going to have 2 strong A's, and then the rest are going to be on the A line as a spread of sorts. I'm going to go first with
the B line. The rest.
No. I'm going to have A's
Okay.
and then A pluses that I'm going to price.
Oh, okay. I got you now.
Correct. So I'm going to, and I'll ramble these off for time's sake. Number 7, Elite Prince. Love the runner in this spot with the unexposed form, the sharp workouts, pace drawn outside, stalk a bunch wide without any will be able to stalk a bunch wide without traffic trouble. The other one that gets me excited as a strong A is the number 1 Humble Beginnings at a big price of 15-1. Last out winner came back to back up that form. And so we'll excuse that last effort off the layoff and the slow pace, and today should get plenty of pace to run into. And figures aren't really even out of the question mark for this bunch. And then the other A's I'll be using that I will not be pressing, the number 2, Linda Loves Lace, drops to the lowest class today, removes blinkers, fits. The number 8, Musically Inclined, again, I think is trending the right direction, and the 3-year-old still has some upside left. And then lastly, Machisma, the number 4, 20-1, slight cutback, has the ability to get loose. In these type of N2L events, I mean, if you're on the lead, sometimes that's what the winning recipe is. So at 20-1, I don't want to be beat by that. So to recap, 7-1 is the strong A's, and then other A's are the 2, 8, and 4 in that order of preference.
I have Musically Inclined as the 9, and I'm pretty sure that's right. As I'm looking at Timeform US, you might have gotten a misnumbered there.
Yeah.
Assuming you didn't mean a different horse. If you meant Musically Inclined, that's the 9, and she's my top pick. I felt like she moved into the fastest part of the race last time, and I thought we'd get an excellent stalking trip. Overall, I think the form's just a little bit better than it looks. That's going to be enough for me in here. I thought that the 13 Silent Guru and 2 Linda Loves Lace, who you mentioned, both have claims on figures and tactical speed. Those are the 2 I wanted as the backups. I'm going to be very interested. It's the open kind of race and a level where your pricey horses, especially that 1 Humble Beginnings, I am going to probably wind up sneaking onto the tickets as B's as well. So yeah, a little bit of a rough journey there today, going out of order, getting numbers wrong, mispronouncing things. But I think we got the ship back into port. Drew, always a pleasure to have you on. And for more from Drew, check out inthemoneypodcast.com, and also make sure to check out our special audio only podcast. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to have to go over to iTunes to get that one. But audio only for a Woodbine Sunday card that's got a grade 2 stake in it. You can play those races while you're watching your football, doing your thing. Good stuff, Drew. Cheers, my friend.
Thanks.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. I want to thank Jill Gentili, Drew Coatney, and Klaus Ebner for their contributions. Let's also thank our founding partners, 10 Strike Racing. Around here, you know, we always love to root for the purple and black, as well as the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Didn't talk about them that much this show, but you know how much we admire the work they do, especially with their Second Chances program. If you scored out from anything on our network, on the plus side, whatever, for the Breeders' Cup, if you want to give something back, consider a donation to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. trfinc.org/players is the place to do that one. What other thank yous? Well, here's a big one. How about producer Craig? He's back in the chair. He's a little rusty today. I think he got a little triggered before when I said the word marathon, but it's great to have him back. AJ did an awesome job in his stead, but we're just so pleased and lucky to have 2 such talented, dedicated producers on our team. And Craig, we are very, very glad you survived the actual marathon and are back with us where you belong as well. How about a shout out to everybody out there, the listeners, the viewers who make these shows so much fun to do. Thanks most of all to all of you. We hope you enjoy what you hear here and get more content through subscribing, rating, reviewing, clicking the bell on YouTube, and iTunes, probably the easiest place. But wherever you get your podcasts, In the Money Media, check it out. We appreciate you. That's going to do it. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.